Great. So we are live. Om Ganana Tva Ganapatikam Avamahe Kavim Kavina Vamashramastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspadana Shinvanodipasi Sadanam Shivaha Ganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Virvajinipati Dinam Avitrevatu Maha Saraswati Namaha Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha गुरुवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः पिन्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः देवी वाचमजनेन्त देवाः तां विश्वरूपा पशवो वदन्ति सा नो मन्द्रेषु मूर्जन्धुहाना धेनुर्वागस्मारपतिष्ठितयतु व्यासं वसिष्ठवक्तारं शक्ते पौत्रमकल्मषं पराशरात् वन्दे शुकदादं तपोनिधिं व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मनिधये वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः शिवशक्तिसमारम्भां भास्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मश्रीनाथपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् श्रीललिता महात्रिपुरसुन्दरी समेत श्रीचन्द्रमौळीश्वराय नमः श्रीकाञ्चीकामकोटिपीठाधिपति जगद्गुरु श्रीशङ्कराचार्य श्रीचरणयोः प्रणामाः स्वस्ति श्रीमदखिलभूमण्डलालङ्कारत्र त्रिंशत्कोटिदेवता सेवित श्रीकामाक्षी देवी सनाथ श्रीमदेकाम्रनाथ श्रीमहादेवी सनाथ श्रीहस्तगिरिनाथ साक्षात्कारवरमाधिष्ठान सत्यव्रतनामाङ्कित काञ्ची दिव्यक्षेत्रे शारदामठसुस्थितानाम् अतुलितदारसमाधुर्य कमलासन कामिनी दम्मिल्ल सम्फुल्ल मल्लिका मालिका निष्यन्द मकरन्दझरी सौवस्तिक वाङ्निकुम्भ विजृम्भणानन्द तुन्दलित मनीष मण्डलानाम् अनवरताद्वैत विद्या विनोदरसिकानां निरन्तरालङ्कृतीकृत शान्तिदान्ति भूम्नां सकलभुवनचक्रप्रतिष्ठापक श्रीचक्रप्रतिष्ठा विख्यात यशोऽलङ्कृतानां निखिलपाषण्डषण्डकण्ठकोद्दाटनेन विशदीकृतभेदवेदान्तमार्ग षण्मतप्रतिष्ठापकाचार्याणां श्रीमत्परमहंसपरिव्राजकाचार्यवर्य श्रीजगद्गुरु श्रीमच्छङ्करभगवत्पादाचार्याणाम् अधिष्ठाने सिंहासनाभिषिक्त श्रीमच्चन्द्रशेखरेन्द्र सरस्वती संयमीन्द्राणाम् अधिष्ठाने सिंहासनाभिषिक्त श्रीमज्जयेन्द्र सरस्वती संयमीन्द्राणाम् अन्तेवासिवर्य श्रीमच्छङ्करविजयेन्द्र सरस्वती श्रीपादानां च चरणनिलयोः सप्रश्रियं साञ्जलिबन्धं च नमस्कुर्मः. All right, so I have shared the script on WhatsApp. The next Mundaka. So we completed the first Mundaka, 2 chapters last week. We are into the second Mundaka, first chapter. Do you have it, Sunalji?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Radha, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, you got that. You got it, right? Sanjay, you also have it, right? Because I've just put it on WhatsApp as it is, so it's easy for you to access it. So, any questions so far on the first Mundaka? Okay, so the first mantra goes like this: Tadetat Satyam Yatha Sudiptat Pavaka Visfulingaha Sahasrashah Prabhavante Sarupaha. तदेतत् सत्यं यथा सुदीप्तात् पावकाद् विस्फुलिङ्गाः सहस्रशः प्रभवन्ते सरूपाः तथाक्षराद् विविधाः सौम्यभावाः प्रजायन्ते तत्र चैवापि यन्ति. तथाक्षराद् विविधाः सौम्यभावाः प्रजायन्ते tatra chaivapi yanti. That means that etat is this. Satyam, obviously, truth. So tadetat satyam means that this truth. Yatha, as. Sudiptat is blazing. Blazing. Pavakat, from fire. Visfulingaha means sparks. Sarupaha, of the same appearance. Sahasrashah, we know, is by thousands. Prabhavante means spring out. Tatha, so. Somya means my young friend. Vividhaha, various. Bhavaha, beings. Aksharat, from that imperishable. Prajayante, originate. Tatra means there. Eva, verily. Api, again. Cha means and. So cha eva api becomes shaivapi. Yanti means go back. Tatra chaivapi yanti means, and again they verily go back there. So if in one line the meaning of this mantra is, this is the truth, that as from a blazing fire shoot out thousands of sparks of the same appearance, so do the various beings in the sense it's referencing us included, originate. My young friend, any ideas to the references to who when we say my young friend?
Shaunaka.
Correct. Because this is the whole conversation between Angirasa and Shaunaka. So from that imperishable, unto it, they verily go back again. So if you rewind and replay, you will now be able to place everything in context of, we said pranava, then we said understood the concept of sound. And when you really go into the definition of sound as per our scriptures, the 4 stages, do you remember all those? Sonalji is now covering her face. She says, don't ask me any questions right now. No, it's okay. Unless you talk about it, you won't be able to remember or recall. Yeah, you can unmute. And do you remember anything at all? 4 stages. Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama, Vaikhari. Correct? So it is at the point of Madhyama Vak where that sound which is already formed is using Akshara as a carrier. And it is at the Vaikhari Vak where it is getting delivered as sound that you hear me, what I speak. Does it ring a bell now? Yeah. So the reference here to the Akshara is to the imperishable being. So we understood how from Pranava through the Bijaksharas, through the process of evolution, the Panchabhutas were formed. From Panchabhutas, how human beings were formed, how other living beings exist. Correct? Do you remember the example of all the trees and everything growing from the same Mother Earth? So when we talk of that fire, if you refer to the imperishable being as the main fire, from that fire we have evolved. Right? So that is what we refer as Paramatma. From the Paramatma, the Jivatma. So imagine from that fire there are many sparks, which is containing the fire that we are, right? So the comparison or analogy that is being made here is to the trees. From the same Mother Earth, there are so many trees that are taking shape. They're all feeding off the same earth. But when the tree grows, there are different trees having different forms and shapes. So though they share a common part, which is attached to the Mother Earth, like all of us have that Jivatma, which is a part of the Paramatma, the reference or the clarification that is being made here is each one of us have our own distinctive part which is related to just us. I hope I'm making it simple, not very complicated. Okay. Do you understand what I'm saying now? So the Jivatma that we all carry is part of the same Paramatma. So that is common amongst all of us. The same. But apart from that, there is a distinctive self that belongs to each one of us. The way we look, the way we behave, the way we conduct ourselves, every one of those things. But through this process of doing a lot of karmas, which reference is made as aparavidya, paravidya and aparavidya is where you're talking about all the rituals, the procedures through which you do your karmas. Through your karmas, you create certain things, you achieve certain things, and then you derive happiness and pleasure that you have done something, but you're still within the bondages of those lower level insignificant stuff that is not going to take you to liberation. That is what we summed up so far, right? So the reference here is that lower level knowledge, aparavidya, does not contain the real truth. That is being reinforced again. So the real truth, or the dawn of the higher knowledge, paravidya, is as follows. So the whole universe with its diverse modes and contents, the jivas and the individual beings, they all have come out from that imperishable, infinite being. And the jivas are essentially of the same nature as that of the supreme being from a nature perspective. When you talk of the Atma, so the difference is more in magnitude and not in kind. So indirectly, subtly, what is being established is the principle of non-duality. So I'm introducing a very simple word that you need to absorb and grasp it, because the principle of non-duality, which is called Advaita, Advaita means Dva means two, Advaita means there is no two; it is one and the same. And this was revealed by our Guru, Jagat Guru Adi Shankara. Thereafter, there were other acharyas that described this whole concept of Jivatma and Paramatma in different ways. I'll just give the names without trying to get into a detailed discussion on philosophy. Anybody knows the other two? Adi Shankara talked about Advaita. What are the other two?
You're talking of the, Dvaitam and Visishtadvaitam, no?
Correct.
Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya.
Correct.
Ramanujacharya is Visishtadvaitam.
Visishtadvaita.
And Acharya is Dvaita.
Correct. So, do you know the high level differences?
I know that, but I would prefer if you can explain to the
Yeah.
others.
Very, very simple is I will give very simple layman's language so that you don't get into a spin of, the philosophical aspect of our system. In Advaita, basically, Adi Shankara says that the Purusha or the Brahman that we talk about is absolutely formless, colorless, infinite, imperishable. That is the way it is being described, right? We learned it in one of the mantras. Here we are saying that we are all part of that big, imperishable human being. So if that is termed as Paramatma, Para means always the absolute truth. That is the real truth. We are Jivatma. So all these Jivas are nothing but the sparks of that big fire. फुलझड़ी आप लोगे तो आप विजुअलाइज करिएगा. If you just light a fuljadi, what happens? There are so many sparks coming, right? But they're all coming from that fuljadi that you're holding in your hand. So it is like those sparks. But we merge finally into the same Paramatma. Although we evolve, we finally merge into the same Paramatma. So there is no difference between Paramatma and Jivatma. That is a fundamental philosophy that Sri Adi Shankara establishes, explaining us versus the real truth. Madhvacharya slightly deviates from that. He says, yeah, the same concept of Paramatma, Jivatma is there, but Paramatma has got certain characteristics and attributes, and the Jivatma can never merge into that. Paramatma is Paramatma, that's it. So there is a sense of duality. There is a distinction between the Paramatma and Jivatma that is being established by Madhvacharya. So from totally Nirguna, which is without attributes or characteristics, he describes Paramatma as Saguna Brahman. Visishtadvaitam is basically a hybrid between the two. So if that topic is of interest, we can do it a little bit of 15-20 minute discussion separately on some other day. But from this meaning of this mantra, if it is able, you're able to appreciate what that mantra is basically trying to explain, then our purpose is achieved as far as what Mundaka Upanishad says. And you see how many times that whole concept is being reinforced. So again, the mantram says, Tadetat Satyam Yatha Sudiptat Pavakat Visfulingaha Sahasraha Prabhavante Sarupaha. So from the blazing fire shoot out thousands of sparks of the same appearance and kind, but only the magnitude is different. So do the various beings originate from that imperishable, and it goes back to that imperishable again. So what you learn and experience through the Aparavidya, the lower level knowledge, is all finite. It will end. You created something, it will end. There is a definitivity or certain life to it. And that is not going to lead to emancipation, which is liberation. So whatever we experience, it's called as samsara. Samsara derives its strength from that immortal source. Are you with me? Yeah. So the tree example is a very good example. It's easy to understand. So the rule is not that if you just because derive the strength from Mother Earth, all the trees have to look exactly the same size, same color, same attributes, etc. No, it's not required. You derive your energy or source or fire from that Mother Earth, but there is an individual characteristic associated to each of those trees by which it will differ in their appearance, magnitude, characteristics in its own merit. So, when we perform this lower level knowledge, learning through Vedas, learning the rituals, and we tend to perceive that as a real truth. This mantra reinforces that that truth is false and it is coming only out of ignorance. It is that Purusha or the Brahman which is the real truth. So, if you take the whole so the space as being a pot, so the various cavities in the pot or in the akash are due to its being enclosed in the pot. So we are all enclosed in that pot. So the cause and the absorption of the jiva are due to the akshara. So indirectly, it is again reinforced that either you can just stop at what you see or what you experience through your actions, or which is also through karma, is the real truth. And I've seen everything, I know everything, and you can remain in that state of ignorance, or recognize that there is something that is beyond all of this, and you need to learn that liberation is beyond all of this, and you need to start detaching from it. And that you can only learn through the Paravidya. It's easier said than done. So, can any one of you give me that keyword that connects? I briefly alluded to the summary last. What is that one keyword that you need to understand what it is?
Maybe introspection.
No, try.
Vairagyam.
That is the requirement to reach that higher level. Vairagyam is again in a Sanskritam word for sort of a process by which you deliver the detachment. And that is where I'm saying you just to pay attention to the micro level details. Vairagyam is the process that delivers the detachment. The end result of Vairagyam is that you start getting detached from everything and you live a very austere life. But what is the keyword that is the focus of attention? Go back to the definition of sound. At least in Tantra Shastra, we talked about sound, how the Parapashyanti Madhyama Vaikhari connects to something else. And we talked about why that sound should be able to resonate you with the rest of the cosmos.
You had mentioned Turiya.
Now you're touching it. So what is that Turiya? What it is part of what?
It is that where you transcend from this state.
You're describing the state, but it is a state of what? Consciousness.
Yeah.
Sonalji, are you able to grasp what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right? We talked about it also very in detail. So what are the various states of consciousness?
We talked about waking, dream, and deep sleep.
Correct. So it's not 3, 4. So we all relate to only 3 states. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. The Turiya state is not, we can't even comprehend what it is unless you reach yourself to the elevated level. So the connection there is that you do through words or aksharas with the sound, you energize yourself. And when you constantly do that and you practice Vairagya, saying, I need to now move away from all of these attractions that is binding me to the lower levels. Just imagine it in another simple format. I mean, I can think of one more example. If you are in your home, right, and let's say my dream is to go to Manhattan here in the US. For you, it could be some other place like the proper city of London. Sitting in your home, in your living room or family room, just by imagining it, are you going to be able to go there? So, what are the key things that you need? First of all, you need to recognize you are in a different place. You're looking at a destination. So, that recognition and acceptance of the fact that I need to travel, I need to move from here to there is important. Only then all other actions follow. Unfortunately, in our day-to-day life, we just take everything for granted. If you have to go from here to this city, New York City, just go. What's the big deal? No, you take many things for granted, but indirectly, I shouldn't use the word unconsciously. You do whatever is required, and only then you can reach there. If even any of those components, like you don't even know where New York City is it north or is it south from where you live? And if you don't know what tools you need a vehicle, you need a GPS if you don't know the directions. And you need to make sure that you're progressing in the same direction, making progress towards the destination. Correct? So I can give an analogy, the turnpike here or the freeway here. So when you are pushed through the toll gates, it gives you both the option of north and south. While starting from home, you know that you are south and city is north. So obviously you need to be aware and say, okay, I need to take the north, not the south. As soon as you cross the toll, you just lose your concentration and focus and you enter the south, it will take you to some other city, Philadelphia. You'll never reach New York. Are you getting what I'm saying in terms of micro level details? So, if you are talking of understanding and relating to what this whole Turiya state is, you need to understand all the ingredients of the recipe. You need to understand that there are different states of consciousness. And each of them, imagine it like your keyboard on a piano. Each of them have a different frequency. And only when you tune into that frequency will you be in sync or in alignment with that. And only when you're in sync, you'll make progress. Is that definition helping you?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, instead of going to the next mantra, which I thought we can go, probably if it is of interest, I can now give you a little bit of idea in terms of how our system views all of these things. So we keep saying, if you don't mind, right? Just frequently we use, if you don't mind. What is a mind? What is it?
Thoughts with energy.
What else? Yes, Sanjay, what is mind?
I think origin of the energy, or from where we are trying to evolve or
Okay.
generate or create.
Okay. Radha?
Mind, I mean, it's different from intellect. Mind actually works.
Super. See, that is where it makes the difference when you pay attention, right? Yeah, I'm glad you're on the right track. Go ahead. So let me give you the terminology so that you can start absorbing it. In Veda, mind is constituted of 5 basic components. Manas, which is the crux. Ahankara. Chitta. Buddhi. Buddhi is intellect that you are referring to. Buddhi and Atman. So don't get mired into the technicalities of those things. From mind, now at least you know there is something more detailed into it. If somebody says, what is the mind? At least you'll be able to answer what it is, right? So ahankara is very easy to know. I hope you know the meaning of ahankara, right? We all have that a lot. And we demonstrate that more prominently than anything else. How would you define that as?
That I am doing everything. The word
Correct.
Correct. The whole responsibility of running everything around myself or the entire world as though I am doing it. So that word I describes.
Correct. So now establish the connection between that knowledge of I that you had of ahankara with the whole concept of aparavidya and paravidya. You see the connection there?
Yeah. That I don't have any such power. I am.
No, as soon as we learn all the Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Sama Veda, etc., and we start knowing the procedures, rituals, how to conduct homam, how to do mantra japam, We have the knowledge of what is sound. We have the knowledge of what is akshara. We have the knowledge of bija aksharas. We start learning all of these things. We learn the sutras. We learn everything. Suddenly you feel that you are the creator of all these things. You did that. You did that. Everything is you did that. It is very, very hard for us to say, it's not me. It's the superior force that is out there that is making things happen through me. I'm just a tool or a messenger. And the key thing is that ahankara that blinds you. And it blinds you in many ways. It blinds you in a way where, let's say you have learned certain things. If you decide, your ahankara says, you know what, I know it all. I don't need you to teach me anything more. That's the end of it. So how will you keep yourself open to learning more? How will you keep yourself open to saying, okay, there is much more to learn than what I know? The first principle is to accept there is something beyond what you know. Right? It is like New York City is somewhere else. It's not in the same place where I am. That knowledge or recognition is required for you to traverse that journey. Then you require that intellect. You require the Atman. So whenever you say mind, you need to first understand these components. Only then you can bring all of these under control. Right? So there is another example in another Upanishad called Katha Upanishad, and also in Bhagavad Gita. When you talk of Bhagavad Gita, what is the picture that comes to your mind immediately? The central picture that we all know.
Yeah, Krishna is teaching to Arjuna and giving teaching what is right and what is wrong and the right move.
Correct. But do you see the picture only with Krishna and Arjuna?
So the horses and the five.
There you go. There you go.
The chariot.
So now are able to connect one by one.
Yeah.
So imagine that these five components, five forces, all connected to one hand.
Nodal point.
Yeah. So if you let any of the horse go out of control in a different direction, you're not going to be able to reach your destination. Please pay attention to this without getting distracted, because that is a question. Hey, it's all great. Now you've repeated 100 times. Lower level knowledge, higher level knowledge. It's all kind of, I just don't know still how to do it. What do you want me to do? How can I reach the destination? You're not giving me the formula. Right? So that formula is to understand that there's something called mind has got five components. I need to have all the five components under control. And then you need to be able to start connecting the recipe for getting all of this under control. How can you get the ahankara under control? How can you get your intellect to deliver what you need to do? Right? They all need to go in the same direction. And you ensure that the direction is north if your destination is New York, and south if it is Philadelphia, from where I am. That clarity constantly and that knowledge. So you may not have knowledge about saying, I've never been to New York City. So how do I find out? It's up to you to find out. Google it. Educate yourself that there is something called an atlas or a map. And just because somebody hands over a map to you doesn't mean it solves the problem. Or just because somebody says, okay, there's a Garmin GPS device, you just put it in your car and you go, nothing happens automatically. If it is Garmin, a digital tool, then you need to know how to connect it, how to switch it on, how to interpret that software, what it is telling you, that the arrow is facing north. So then you need to have knowledge of north, east, west, south. Does it make sense?
Yes.
In our day-to-day life, we just take everything for granted. That's a given, yeah. But if somebody asks you, what do you need for going from where you are to that place? If you really are in the process of trying to understand the higher level knowledge, you need to have a very fine appreciation of what are all the ingredients or components that make it happen. So the knowledge of that is required. Second is how to achieve that control or travel the journey, and monitor it whether you are in the right direction. And if you're going in the journey and suddenly you're in a traffic jam, Google will give you the information in a different form. Garmin will give you in a different form. And if you're going through a paper atlas, or in good old days before the advent of mobile phones, we used to have something called triptych. We used to go to AAA, nearest AAA. We will say, I'm here, I want to go here. They have the knowledge. They will create that whole route step by step for you. That you go here, make a left here, make a right here, go take this tollway, freeway, and then head north. So, point that is being made here is that you need to understand those finer elements or steps. Only then you will be able to reach the destination. So, one of the important introduction that I'm doing here is that these are the 5 components that together makes what we call as mind, right? So those horses are representing the senses. So the mind is a driver that holds the reins. But next to the mind is the master of the chariot. That is the true observer or the self. We are the observers. That represents a universal unity. So without that self, no coherent behavior is possible, which means you just remove Krishna from the picture. The reins are there, horses are there, they're all in one direction, but there is nothing to hold it together, tying it together. Do you expect that all the 5 horses will be able to go in the same direction? The answer is no. Right? So, there is another, in Taittiriya Upanishad, that individual or that self is represented in terms of 5 different sheets. Now, initially, I gave you an example of 3 layers, like the Sthula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram, and causal body. Here, it gives the same definition in a different perspective. And those levels are the physical body, which is also called as Annamaya Kosha. Physical body called as Annamaya Kosha. Then there is an energy body or Pranamaya Kosha. Then there is a mental layer, Manomaya Kosha. There is an intellect layer, which is Vijnanamaya Kosha. And finally, there is a bliss layer. And I've explained the difference between happiness and bliss, right? It is called Anandamaya Kosha. So the lower level is the physical one, Annamaya Kosha. Then the energy level, which is Pranamaya Kosha. Then mental level, which is Manomaya Kosha. Intellect is above that, Vijnanamaya Kosha. And bliss is Anandamaya Kosha. So when you move from the physical body through the energy level, through what is this mental layer, Manomaya Kosha, you cross the intellect layer, only then you have scope of reaching Manhattan, which is the bliss or Anandamaya Kosha. So if you focus on intellect, let's just take the level of intellect. What is the keyword that comes to your mind? If let us say everything else is not there, only intellect is there.
Knowledge.
So good. So but with that knowledge, what do we do? What do we
Yeah,
tend to
how
do?
to use it? If we don't know the other things, how the knowledge is useful to you, one will not be able to understand.
No, I'm saying if let us say that you get knowledge, you have the intellect
Yeah,
and you through that intellect you get knowledge.
yeah,
What is the logical thing we do? I just blurted out this answer.
yeah, yeah.
We find logic in
Try to,
everything,
yeah, yes, yes, yeah,
right? We find logic in everything.
yeah,
Here, what is being communicated is there are things beyond logic, beyond your
yeah.
intellect, and that is the Anandamaya Kosha. So you can't view everything from that logic. And incidentally, that's a good definition that I forget the exact words, but I read and heard somewhere. I liked it. When people say, "Oh, if your scriptures has got everything," and there was a debate in one of the WhatsApp group, if you have the design of the Vimana or the plane, can you please tell me what fuel was existing in Treta Yuga? Because according to them, everything was discovered only now, right? The jet diesel fuel, etc., was invented only now, discovered now. So, what is the fuel used by Ravana? See how you get straitjacketed into a particular way of thinking because I want you to think in that way. And if you fall in that trap, the modern day science is all by experience and seeing and touching,
Evidence.
evidence and senses. It's all like I
Yeah, yeah,
need,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I need to see it, I need to feel
You
it,
need to feel it. You
and
need
I
to
need to
feel it.
feel it. Otherwise, I don't believe what you're saying. Very solid, established evidence of saying that's progressive mind. But I asked people, I said, "Do you believe in transcendental meditation?" Oh, yeah. I said, "Do you believe in Newton?" Newton said, "Everything is about gravity," which is a fact. So, what modern day science says is if you have to defy gravity, you need some fuel, electric or fossil fuel or whatever. Correct? Straight jacketed. And there lies the difference. There is a contradiction in their own system, Western belief, where they say, yeah, using your mind and intellect and all of these control through yoga, meditation, mantra japa, whatever you say, you can defy gravity. So a human being can sit cross-legged on a floor in a room, and if you are able to learn and practice TM, you can actually move from one room to another room, defying gravity. So they can't deny it. The Western world has already recognized that. So how does it go well with the basic notion that you have been brainwashed from childhood? Oh, there cannot be anything to defy gravity unless there is a fuel to support it. Am I making sense? So I said, how about that there is a method or mechanism or technology that existed then which didn't need fuel? And that is one of the reasons why I liked that serial of Devoka De Mahadev. There are so many things that they have picturized in a way it is easy for you to understand. Correct? And very essential part of that is which we laugh it off by saying, oh, this is all like crap. This is all like hypothesis. It can never happen. Ravana is desperate to please Lord Shiva, but he had a limitation that he did not recognize anybody else other than Lord Shiva. Not the Ganas, not Parvati, nobody. According to them, everybody else is a waste. So suddenly somebody put in his head, see, you're talking of your Aradhya, which is Lord Shiva. He is living like a Vairagi. Poor man doesn't even know how to survive and enjoy luxury of life, despite all the power that he has got. So if you want to make him happy, get him that luxury. Like he's living in a hut or a very poor home. Bring all the luxuries. So first thought that Ravana does is he goes to Kubera and says, I want all the gold that you have. And Kubera is scared of Ravana to say not to say no. So he puts a nice condition to him. Okay, fine. Even if I give you all the gold, how are you going to transport it from where I am to Kailash? Don't worry about it. He goes into the meditation and he's transporting everything. It's a very simple scene. If you go to it, maybe it's just one scene in one episode. But hidden in those things are those concepts that you need to pay a little bit more attention to say, is it really mythology as people say, or there existed those supernatural powers and capabilities of people who were far more advanced than what we are today because they understood the details of what we are talking about today. They paid attention to it, they trained themselves, they graduated, and they knew how to utilize all this knowledge. Am I making sense? So it's in one scene you can get the example of Ravana still caught into that lower level knowledge of gold, luxury, 5 star, 7 star. He thinks that is Ananda or bliss. Whereas the real bliss is where Lord Shiva is. He has no attachment. He's not bound by anything. That is why, even in the definition, when you say, if you take the Kundalini approach also, when Shakti is traversing all the way up in your body through the energy centers and unites with Shiva, Shiva is sitting in the Sahasrara. That is when you get that bliss. Or emancipated from this earthly bondings. And I hope you remember all the thing that I talked about last week about the 1,000 light sun as you pass through it. That will melt everything that you see as physical matter. So what happens is at the lowest level, it is the physical body. The physical body is called Annamaya Kosha. The next level is mental, Pranamaya. So the energy that underlies these two layers is called prana. The energy that is underlying these two layers is called prana. So at the lowest level is the physical body. At the next higher level is the energy system at work, which I keep referring to all the time. Prana. And the next higher level are thoughts. But these three levels are interrelated. So you can play around with these three layers and a combination of these three layers where you can manipulate the energy situation. You can do physical conditioning. You can do mental conditioning. Or a combination of the two to be able to relate or understand all what I described just now, just 5 minutes ago. So take an example of this energy. Ravana Right now, you're paying full attention. You're calm. You're attentive. And you're willing to hear and absorb. If any of these components is missing, do you think this transmission of knowledge is going to happen? So now you understand, right? Your physical posture, your physical presence in this class is important. And let's say that instead of sitting calm and this thing, you keep doing this thing, very agitated, very angry, very in an elevated state. So your elevated state, mental state is going to reflect in your physical state. And you start keep moving everything. So neither you're able to pay attention or hear anything. You create a lot of noise. This process is thoroughly impacted. It's not going to succeed. So reverse is true. So if you really want to be able to understand and develop the knowledge and utilize that knowledge to be able to make progress and move forward, you need to control every element that is at play. For that, you need to know that there are 5 elements that are at play. Am I making sense? I'm trying to simplify it as layman's language as possible, right? So they are also characterized as gunas, and I'm sure Radha will also know, and Sanjay, you must have also heard about it. Sonalji, have you heard of something called gunas?
Yes.
Tell me, what do you know about it? Huh? Sorry?
You mean like sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic?
Correct. So, when you are very agitated and restless, what is at play?
Rajasic,
Correct. And when you are dull and lethargic, calm,
tamasic,
and what is sattva?
sattvic, peaceful and calm.
No,
Yeah,
it is equilibrium.
equilibrium.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and balance. Those are the gunas. So prana or energy is described as the, let us say, the medium of exchange. Okay. In the psychophysiological system, there's the physiological system, there is a psychological system that is at play, both the physical and mental state. Correct? That's what we said. The energy is the underlying component in these 2 layers. So if you just separate these 2, the mental state, the intellect state, and the bliss state together is combined or lumped together as the mind. But for every higher level state to exist or come into play, there is a prerequisite that the lower level is a must. So without that physical and energy level, mental, intellect, and bliss state does not exist. Is it getting a little complicated now? And that's where I'm trying to introduce in a very slow fashion that what we take for granted in leapfrog and jump in every aspect of our life, we need to slow down and break it down. Making sense, Sonalji?
Yes.
So train your mind to say, yeah, I understand. I can't take anything for granted. For this to happen, this is important. For this to happen, this is important. This is controlled by this. This is the process to achieve this. This whole formula is to be understood. That is what this Upanishad is all about.
Mm. Yes.
When we don't pay attention to these micro level details and we just keep asking, tell me that one single formula that, like, in a lighter sense, what Padmajaji was asking last time, you give me one line explanation of how to achieve liberation. I wish it was. Everybody would be liberated. Correct?
Yes.
Although she did not mean it that way. She was trying to say, tell me the meaning of this mantra in one line that I can remember.
Yeah.
So there is no one-line answer for all of these things. You need to understand the components. You need to understand the dependencies and the interrelationships amongst all these components, and be able to see, okay, this gets fired up through this. This is the process to fire it up, and maintain an equilibrium of all of these things. If in the 5 components of what is forming a mind, if you don't even know that there is something called ahankara that exists and that is ruling over you, you will say, yeah, I know all the 4, but I don't know what is stopping me from reaching my destination. No, there is a 5th one that you don't even know about it. That is at play. But once you know, and once you know it in the way you are supposed to know, the limitations and strengths of each, then you have a formula. Then you can formulate a plan, and your formula or plan could be slightly different than mine, the way I achieve it, as long as we know how to balance all of these things, right? So moving forward, we will stop here in terms of the various layers, and I will continue this part in the next class after giving the next mantra and the meaning of the next mantra. I want you to soak whatever you heard today and be able to at least reproduce that in the next class. That way it won't be too much in one shot. Radha, does it make sense?
Yes, very much. Yes.
Anything interesting that you picked up today?
No,
Or you have already heard of these things before?
no, not that way. No, I know very little. What I do is I keep listening to so many people.
Yeah.
So it's better that I hear once again from you to have more clarity. Don't
Yeah.
worry about it. Sometimes hearing too much also can muddle the head. So sometimes
I just realized that. So that's why I said, okay, let me stop with this today.
No, I'm telling you, I'm telling myself. So every time every evening I listen to a lot of all this. So I just wanted to just illustrate that the story of Dhruva, no? Actually, what you were mentioning that it is above all the senses or the khana, pina, sleep, he slowly goes in that 4-5 months of what do you call whatever his penance that he does. He overcomes everything month by month. Last week you were saying something that somehow you leave this, you try and leave something which is very dear to you.
Correct.
For a day. But actually, Dhruva's penance says the first month he goes without food, something like that, So next month is without jala, and after that the air that he breathes. So he transcends from one state to the other. And I think it is in a matter of 5 to 6 months. It's less than 6 months, they say. He's actually, God is so pleased that actually the boy is so small, 4 or 5 years, but he has understood at such a young age to do some penance which is not capable for any of us. So it requires lot of determination. It is not easy.
Conviction.
And what he has been told, the only path he was told is take the name of this God. Narada actually gives him diksha when he's on his way to the forest. So the story actually illustrates all the things that you are telling. But one of the most difficult thing is to control the mind.
You will hear that from me so many times. People who know me here for last 25 years will say, oh, there he goes again, that mind stuff. But today I found that it may be helpful to just describe what that mind means. If you break it down for people, then it is easy for them to understand.
When you said leave coffee for a day, not possible. Leave tea for 2 days, not possible. Every time you yearn for that half cup of coffee in the morning, it is the case with all of us. It is not addiction, but it is a thing that, okay, I'll start from tomorrow or day after tomorrow. It's okay. Half cup will not matter. All those, there is a constant dialogue within us between what is the path to be taken and what we actually do, and the effort. I'm telling you, last so many years I've been having even a small thing to leave that is taking a lot of effort. It's not possible to let go. It's not possible to let go just like that.
I'll give a clue for that. See if it helps. I don't want to sound prescriptive. I will share what always worked for me. Remember, I gave an example. It sounds very simple. Yeah, he's talking stuff that I already know, right? And if you were to go from here to New York, you need a GPS, you need a car, you need fuel, you need gas, you need electricity, whatever it is, right? It's all common sense. The biggest problem is lack of understanding of what is common sense. Number one. If you really put the whole into a simple one-word perspective, I have the map, I have the car, I have the GPS, I have the tool, I know how to drive, I have a license, I have the money, I have everything. I know New York is north and my home is here. Does all this combination guarantee that you are in city?
No, my focus is.
So there is an
and
incentive.
determination and the focus is.
Yes, there is an incentive, and I call that incentive as the energy, the pull that gives you that energy, like a magnet. That incentive, nothing is going to happen. You can keep saying I have a lot of knowledge, I have everything, I know, I know, but there is no incentive. So moment you pay attention to that incentive, and in that incentive is to say yes, if I traverse this journey, I'm going to reach New York, which in our case is liberation, freedom from this whole cycle of birth and rebirth. And when you set out to drive and to follow the map, there is no guarantee that it will take you to New York. You have to put that faith in that map or that Garmin or the tool or the Google map to say, yeah, if I follow this, it will take me there. Because and that faith in that map or tool is important. So,
Yes.
the incentive that I need to get liberated, even though I may not understand what it is today, since everybody does it and everybody is going for it, the scriptures are saying it, everybody is speaking the same language. Let me set out on that path. And I have a limited time. If you're X number of years, you have got X number of time in your hand in this birth. So I rather now do it, because if you know that you have to be in New York in about 40 minutes and the actual drive time is about 1 hour, and you have no knowledge of the traffic condition, if you're clueless, you're never going to reach your destination. But a little bit of knowledge of where you are, how far is the drive, and what is the traffic condition will help you plan to pace yourself up. And we do it all the time. I'm not proposing it live on YouTube, but we press on the accelerator. The speed limit says 65 miles per hour. You say, no, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. Make it 75, 80. You're willing to take that risk. But you are willing to do all that stuff only if you know that I have to reach the city. That is when I'm going to get liberated. So that incentive makes a big difference. Without that conviction or incentive, what you described is definitely going to happen with all of us.
It is happening.
Correct.
And in fact, it's a very long way to go as well. Knowing little bit may help. Some people, not knowing anything may also help. Or, I think people are in different levels of, spiritual path when they take birth. That is my belief. So sometimes it comes on its own. Sometimes it is very easy. Sometimes very difficult. Maybe there is a carryover effect. I do not know. But definitely, it's a long way.
Yeah, but the underlying fact there, Radha, is when I am in my car for my destination, it's nice to know what are the other cars in other lanes. But neither the speed of the driver in the other car or the status of the other car or the make and model of the other car should distract me.
Yes.
It's ultimately my car that is going to take me to the destination. Right? So regardless of who are at which level, if you just say focus on yourself and say, I have there, so I have to do this. Here are the things that is bonding me. Or if there is a key, unless you open the key, you can't sit in the car. Unless there's a garage door that you open, you can't take the car out. If you just understand those step by step requirements that you need to fulfill, the journey doesn't happen. So my recommendation is, the final word I would say is, don't worry about the result.
True.
Follow the path,
That is
put your effort, put with conviction that you got to do it because that is important for you. Things will change in your own way. And I've seen people changing in my life.
mhm.
And they come back and say, yes, well, you've been hammering it for the last so many years, but now I get it. Because opportunities are always provided to every one of us by God. The difference
Yes.
is those who recognize it and grab it, and those who don't recognize it and just let it go.
Mm.
With that, I will
In
close
fact,
today's session. Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead. You say something.
just one more minute of your
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
It is said we take some 84,000 yonis, or very rarely we come take the birth of a human,
Correct.
and in that this one, let us say we get an opportunity to go to the higher level. So in the story, it goes that it's like this: the person is blind, okay, and he's in a big hall. I mean, something like a playground with 4 walls, and there is only one way out, okay. Since the person is blind, a kind guru, he thinks, let me help this guy, let me give him an idea how to come out of it,
Correct.
because he in that within the 4 walls. So what he says is, see, since you're blind, you just hold the wall with your hand, keep on tapping on the wall, so that somewhere where there is a door, you find out and you walk out.
Correct.
So what happens is, this guy does it thinking that somewhere when he is coming across all the 4 walls, he'll come across the door as well. And it so happens that when he is near the door, or just at the door, he gets a sneeze, and he takes out his hand and sneezes, and then he misses the wall and again goes to the next part of the wall, and he continues like that. So that door is so what do you call difficult to get a grasp of that particular exit, you know.
Yeah.
So that's only an illustrative story.
Yes.
So the 84,000. So again, he has to go through all the 84,000 yonis, and
Yes.
if at all he has done something good, he'll get a human life.
Yes.
And if at all he's able to, then he may come out of the.
Yes.
I mean, that exists. What do you call it? He may get the mukti.
Interesting.
So this is one story. Yeah, it keeps coming. I don't know whether you listen to Devki Nandan Thakur. Actually, I'm not a great listener of his this one, but I was listening continuously for quite a few months.
Mm.
And his Bhagavad Gita in between, it's about 1.5 hours. But the first 30 minutes, last 30 minutes, and all will go in some prayer and song and arti and all that. But a very minuscule part of it will have some story which is very interesting to listen to.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the attempt that I'm doing here is to start exposing you to those key terms and how they're all connected, how they're all interrelated, what drives what, the cause is the approach that I'm taking.
Yes.
So wherever a real life example, so that you're able to relate to what's being said, right? So hopefully it helps you, and if we
Yes.
all get liberated, we can see on the other side of the lokas.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Tall order.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Sure.
Yeah.
Take care. Have a good day. Yeah. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.